Hi, this is Mark from Simplify CNC. Today I want to show you how to make a wave like a trout jumping in the middle of a lake or a rock being tossed in the water. It's a neat little trick here. All you're going to need is the texture tool path. You're going to need the molding tool path. We're going to combine them together. When we get all done, we can adjust the amplitude of the wavelength of the wave, and also we can adjust the total diameter of the circle. This is a little project that I got to put together to hold a notebook. It's not a very thick board. It's only 1/8 of an inch thick, so you don't see the full effect, but you get the idea. I wanted to show you an example, and we're going to dive into our Vectric software, and I'm going to show you how to magnify that in a much more pronounced way, make a beautiful aesthetic, definitely make a keepsake, definitely marketable. I think it's something that you want in your arsenal of tools. So tune in, and I'm going to show you how to make a splash. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new file. I'm going to go ahead and do it in inches today, even though I typically model in millimeters, but I know many of you do inches. So we're going to do 10 inches by 10 inches. Let's go ahead and make this 0.75 inches thick. And I'm going to go ahead and put the Z position on the material surface. Datum, it's your choice, but I'll put it in the bottom left-hand corner. And we're going to go ahead and click OK. And so we've got this. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a rectangle. And let's do a rectangle here. And we're going to go to the size, and we're going to click on it. And if I've already got it typed into 6 inches, but if not, you can backspace and type in 6, and then you're going to go to height, and we're going to type in 1, and then you're going to go create. And so when you do that, you should have something that looks something like this. Then we're going to use a sneaky little trick to create our wave. We're going to get an initial form from our create texture tool. But before we do that, we want to make sure we click the vector with our selection tool on, which is right here. It's the leftmost arrow under edit objects. We're going to go ahead and click on it. Click on the vector texture. And so this is lit up in red, so it's selected, and we're going to put in the following parameters. We're going to put an angle of 0. We're going to put a line spacing of 0.5. We're going to take the slider that's for variation and make sure it's slid all the way to the left. We're going to put the amplitude at 1. So if it's not at 1 already for you, backspace and then type in your exact dimension. The wavelength, we also want at 1. And then the noise, once again, grab the slider, make sure it's slid all the way to the left. Then go ahead and hit preview. And when you do, you're going to see it's going to create a set of sinusoidal waves across your structure. That's good because we're going to use it. Now, don't panic. We're going to make this look a lot better like a real wave in water. So don't think that I'm going to shortchange this. So before we do anything else, this other box is still selected. We don't need that rectangle anymore. Go ahead and hit delete. Actually hit OK so it makes that permanent. Hit OK. And then go ahead and hit delete with just the rectangular box selected. That'll remove that. The next thing we're going to do is with our selection tool active, we're going to click on the central wave. Oh no, when we do, it gets all of the vectors. We need to deal with that. So if we right click, we can go and we can ungroup them. So right click and it has an ungroup objects, and you can put it back on the original layer. So we're going to do that. We've done that. And now when we go click on that central vector, it's going to select it by itself. I'm going to second click with my left mouse button. When I do, you can see the standard area. And if we go in the center, we can grab a hold of that and we can pull it off to the side. These other components we're not going to need. So we're going to go ahead and with the selection tool, we're going to just right click, create a selection box. We're going to right click, click create a selection box, and go ahead and hit delete on your keyboard. Then we're going to go back to this wave that we created, and we're going to click on it, select it, and I'm going to create a copy just so that we have an extra in case something goes wrong. So I'm going to hold down the control button. I'm going to go to the central point. I'm going to grab it and slide it up, and we've got our wave that we're going to work with, and this is just so that we don't have to go through the whole process again if something goes wrong. So I'm going to go ahead and just zoom in here so we can see it a little better. And the strategy we're going to do is we're going to take And right now, if we were to click on this vector, what you're going to find, if we click the nodes, we got a big fat mess. A zillion nodes. We don't want a zillion nodes when we're doing what we're going to do. So we're going to simplify this down, and with this selected, you're going to go over here to the left-hand side to the Curve Fit tool, and we're going to click on Fit Curves to Selected Vectors. We're going to do that, and we want to go up here to where it says Bezier. Click on Bezier, and you can hit Preview if you like, and when you do, you can see all those nodes got reduced down to, I don't know, 16 or 18 nodes, and we're going to click OK, and lo and behold, much, much simpler. Yeah, so let's go ahead and click out of here. Let me zoom in so you can see a little better. And let's go ahead and make another copy of that, just since it's all fixed the way we really want it. I'm going to, with the selection tool, click on it. I'm going to hit the control button. I'm going to grab it in the center, and let's just shift it up to the top. All right. We probably will never need that, but it's easier to do than to have to backtrack. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to splice this thing up. So it's kind of up to you. You could do as many of these as you want, but let's go ahead and maybe do 4 of them. What we're going to do is we're going to cut the vector at each one of these crests of this wave, and then we're going to take apart the components and we're going to manipulate them individually, and then we're going to recombine them, and then ultimately we're going to take the wave that we create, we're going to scale it appropriately, and we're going to use a molding tool path. So that's kind of the big picture. So let's get to it. I'm going to go over here to the left hand side. I'm going to click the node editing mode. I'm going to click the node editing mode, and I'm going to come over and I'm going to select this vector that we're going to be working with. I'm going to zoom in on this point right here. I'm going to bring it in so that I can try to hit it at the apex as close as I can. You'll see the little squiggly line under the cursor. That's what we're looking for. You don't ever want to have a crosshair, because a crosshair means it's dealing with the node. But we're going to go out here, try to hit the peak of the crest, and we're going to go ahead. I can either right click. If I right click, you can see I can go down the menu and go down to cut vector, or it's just more efficient if I go in here again and hover over the top, I can just hit the letter C. So I've cut that first vector. I'm going to come over to the next crest over. I'm zooming in, I'm hovering, I see my squiggly, and I'm going to hit cut vector. And I'm going to go over to my next one. I'm going to hover over the top. I'm going to try to hit it as close as I can to the apex. I'm going to hit cut vector. I'm going to go over to the next one. Apex, cut vector. And then we'll finally come over here, cut vector. So we got something like that. I'm going to go to the left-hand side to the edit tool. I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to get rid of this little tidbit out here. So it's already selected. I'm going to just select it and delete. I'm going to do the same thing to this left-hand side. I'm going to take this section and I'm going to delete it. Now, if I click on these other sections, you can see that they're actually all split apart right now. That's what we want. We want them to be split apart, and I'm just going to spread them apart so that we can manipulate them individually easier. So I'm going to double click, I'm going to grab it, I'm going to take this section here, put it here, I'm going to double click, I'm going to bring this here, I'm going to double click, I'm going to bring this section right here, I'm going to double click, and I'm going to bring this section right here. So now we have our individual sections separated out, and now let's do our tricks to make this thing work. So if you've ever looked at a wave in water, what you're going to see is the height of the wave as it goes out. They're not all the same heights, the waves. The amplitude starts diminishing, and they tend to spread out a bit. It kind of depends on how the object was dropped in the water. So we're going to show it both with larger crests towards the center and then lesser out, and then vice versa. It's kind of your artistic preference. So I'm going to go ahead. I've got the left-hand selection mode. I'm going to go ahead and click on this. And what we're going to do is we're just going to think about as if this was both diminishing in height and spreading out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the left-hand side. Let's spread it out. And then the next thing we're going to do is I'm going to grab it in the center up top, and I'm going to make this thing go down in height. And you'll see how this is all going to work here in a second. I'm going to go ahead and scoot this one over just a little bit because it's going to get in our way. Oops, not too much. So now I'm going to go to the next vector and I'm going to double click on it, and we're going to do a similar sort of thing, but we're going to try to make its amplitude higher than this amplitude here. So let's go ahead and spread it out. We're not going to spread it out quite as much as the other one was spread out. So maybe something like that. And then we're going to grab it at the top here, and we're going to shift it down like so. And then just so it's easier to see what's going on, with it selected, we're going to shift it over here, and we're going to kind of zoom in where this other one is, and we're going to kind of line it up so we can kind of see what's happening. And that's looking pretty good. And then we're going to go over to this next slice. We're going to do the same sort of thing. We're going to reduce its amplitude just a hair, and we're going to spread it out just a little bit, but trying to make it less spread out than the previous one. And then with our arrow keys, we're going to go over here. Let me zoom in so we can see what we're doing. We're going to come and we're going to line those edges up, get them really close without overlapping. Then finally, this last one, we're going to click on it. Maybe just, it's really your call. This is all cosmetics, but maybe just the slightest bit stretched out and maybe just the slightest bit diminished. And then with it selected, let's drag it over here and let's get it close to lined up there. It helps if you zoom in a bit. Okay, that's really good. Well, we still have a problem, and that is that all these components are still separate. So now we're going to deal with the separate components, and we're going to combine this all into one. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to left click on the first section. Holding my shift key, I'm going to left click on the next section over, and we're going to go over to the left hand side under edit objects, and we're going to click on the join close vectors with a smooth curve. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And when I do, and I'm going to click off, when I click back on, it's brought those together as one vector, and that's exactly what you want. And it looks like the curve is nice and smooth. And now we're going to go over with that first larger section now selected. I'm going to hold the shift, click the next section. I'm going to go over to the join close vectors with a smooth curve. I'm going to click on that. And so I'm going to click off, and when I click on, you're going to see that it's joined it, and you can see that it did a nice job because we lined it up well with the arrows. And then with that selected, I'm going to hold the shift key. I'm going to left click on the last section. I'm going to go over to the join with smooth curve and click on it. And lo and behold, if I double click, I've now got one single curve that the thing. And you go, well, that doesn't look anything like a rock being thrown in, spreading out across, but we're really close now. So let's go ahead and just because we've done a lot of work here, let's go ahead and make a copy of this. So I'm going to select it. I'm going to hit the control button. I'm going to go to the center, and let's just drag a copy up. And so we have that, and just so that we're out of the way, let's drag this down just a hair here. So we got something like that. Now at this point, I'm ready to select this, and let's get rid of this mess here. And I'm just going to bring this down so it's less cluttered. Now we're going to create a circle that we're going to revolve this thing around. So let's do that. Let's create a circle. We want it to be a pretty small radius, but I'm going to make it large for the moment, just so you see what happens if you make it bigger. So let's make it a radius of half an inch, which means it's going to be a 1 inch diameter. It's going to look funny when we generate our wave, but we're going to fix it here in a second. And let's go ahead and create it. And so we created it and close. And just so that's in the center of our material, let's go ahead and select this. We're going to go over here to align. And if we click on the center here, align to material, it will align it perfectly. And I think we are already aligned, so close. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to see what this is going to look like. And so we're just about there. Let me, if we go over here to tools, I'm going to go ahead and pin this. And in the second line of tools under toolpath operations, if we go to the, I guess it's the sixth one over, it says molding toolpath. We want to click on molding toolpath. And with our selection tool active, if this isn't already selected, you're going to select your circle. That's what we call the rail. And then we're going to select what we're going to revolve around it. And we're going to revolve this wave that we created. And ignore the fact that it exceeded the depth for the moment. We're going to ignore that. The tool paths, I will make a quick comment. Ball nose is a good choice for the tool, but if you use these molding tool paths that you have a clearance tool, because if you do it without a clearance tool down here, it will actually try to do it all in one pass. You'll probably break your bit. So even if you use the same tool here and here, this is better because to put it, to put a tool on here to clear it out, because this will allow it to go down in little steps and get the majority of the material, and then your final pass will be with whatever this one is. So I've got this one's a 1/4 inch ball nose selected, and when you look on here, this is super slow pass, but the important thing is to step over it. You want about 8% if you want a smooth wave. So we're going to just select that, and then I used a 1/4 inch end mill. You could use the same ball nose, it would be fine if you select it. And the thing here, when you do the clearance, you can do like 40%, and by no means you can do the pass depth. Usually about half of whatever the diameter of your tool is, and depending on your machine, you can up or down this. This is actually not optimized for my machine, but I'm going to go ahead and just select that just so that you can see. But do use a clearance tool or you're going to break your bit. And so let's go ahead and go down to the bottom and let's calculate this. Ignore the fact that it's going to cut through. We're going to fix that in a second, and we're going to reset the preview, and we're going to preview visible tool paths. And when we do, you can start to see that we're getting pretty darn close to the wave look that we want. So I'm going to close this out and let's go fix our problem. So I'm going to go back to the 2D view, and I'm going to unselect, and I'm going to select our wave. Now you could do this manually, click it, and you could drag it down and reduce the height, which is going to keep you from going through the material. But we can do better than that. With this selected, if you go over here to the set selected object size under transform objects, as a second icon over right here, and with X and Y linked here, you can go down to the Y height. Now, if you remember, our board was 0.75 inches, so we don't want the height here to be greater than 0.75 or we're gonna be cutting through. So let's go ahead and make that like let's make it 0.6. 0.6, and it's going to scale everything for us. We're going to hit apply. And so everything was proportional because we linked the X and the Y. That sounds great. And I'm going to go ahead and close, and we're going to create the tool path again. So we're going to click on tool path. Let's go ahead and click on our circle. That's our rail. Click on another thing. Keep everything else the same. Come on down here to the bottom, calculate, reset preview, preview visible tool paths, and that's starting to look like, a ripple that you might see in water. You go, but it's really too deep. It just doesn't look very natural. Well, that's not a problem. We can go fix that super fast because of the way we created this. So come back over. We're going to go to our wave that we created, and this time we're just gonna manipulate it manually. So we're gonna select it, we're gonna grab it, and we're gonna just drag it down like so, and that greatly reduced its amplitude. And so once again, let's see what we're going to get. We're going to go to toolpath. We're going to select our rail. We're going to hold shift. We're going to select our other thing. We're going to come over here and we're going to go to the bottom. We're going to calculate. I'm going to reset the preview. I'm going to preview visible paths. And that's starting to look pretty good. It's starting to look pretty good there. Now, the way we set it, it's, you know, it's making bigger ripples on the outside. Sometimes people like the opposite effect for cosmetics. So let's see, what if we wanted to reverse this wave? How would we do that? So let me show you how to do that. If you go back to the 2D view, if you were to come over here to the edit objects, click on the node editing tool, and then click on this line. When you click on this line, you're going to see one side has a green dot and one side has a black dot. The green dot on the left-hand side is what we call the start point. And so when we spin around this, what we call the rail, when we spin around, it's always going to start on that, and it's going to go out to the other one as it spins around and creates this. If we wanted to start on this side, what we'd have to do is we'd have to zoom in on our vector with the node editing on. We're going to hover over the top. Now this time we don't want the squiggly. We don't want the squiggly like that. We want to be right over the last vector, the black dot. We're going to right click and we're going to come up here and we can either hit the letter P or we can make start point on the drop down menu when we right click. So I'm going to do that, and you suddenly see, if we zoom out, that no longer is this a start point. This is now the start point. So watch what happens when we run the tool path now, selecting it. So I'm going to go to the molding tool path. I'm going to select my rail, which is my circle in this case. I'm going to come over here and select my vector, and we're going to recalculate. We're going to reset preview and preview visible tool paths, and looking pretty good. But you go, look at that huge, you know, gap in the center. You don't really like that much. Well, remember when we originally set up our circle, we made it rather large. We're going to go fix that now. We didn't have to. It was just easier to show in the video doing it that way. So let's go deal with that. So we're going to go back to our 2D. I'm going to click off. I'm going to click on the circle. I'm going to come over here to the Create Vector tab with that selected, and instead of being 0.5, it's got to be selected or this isn't going to work. Otherwise, it's going to create a new circle. Let's go and go 0.05. That sounds like a much smaller circle, and oh yeah, it's much smaller. You can barely even see it probably in the video right now. So I'm scrolled way in. So I'm going to go ahead and click close, and let's see what happens when we do the exact same profile with what we just did. So I'm going to go to the molding tool path. This is already selected, so all I have to do is select the second one. I have to do it in this order. You have to always get the rail first, in this case our circle, and then the wave function that we created. And then of course we're going to go down, and we still have to generate the path, so we have to calculate. So we calculate, and we're going to reset the preview visible tool path. Oh, and that's a much smoother tool path, and you know, a really nice effect that you could use for lots of different projects. And if you still think that's too sharp, there's one more thing that we can do, and that is you can go actually into the node editing tool, and you can actually come down here and you can adjust these Beziers, or you can, you know, manipulate individual nodes, and it will change the look of that as it spins around. So something to be kept in mind, and I hope you enjoyed what we created here. Let's just take one last gander at this. And I think you can see that it's very visually pleasing, and you know, for something where you don't have to have a spire, you can create custom waves, and you can, you know, link more sections than this. Whereas if you were to just to buy an STL off another service, you wouldn't have the flexibility to individually adjust the height of all these, nor would you have the capability of making more and more waves. So this is a superior method, in my opinion, to create this type of effect. And just so that you get a feel for how long these tool paths take, because they can take a while. Let's just take a look and see what these two tool paths would have taken for time. So the clearance tool path, not too long, about 4 minutes, but the sweep tool path, when you get a big path where you're only doing 8% turnover, it's doing an awful lot of passes in there if you go in. And at the rate we were going, it would take a long time to cut something this large out. But it will do a nice result. And if you change the pass depth, you can change that or change it and go with a bigger tool. So hopefully that helps, and I hope that you will make a splash with your next project. It's definitely something. And if you reduce the size of the length of your wave, like if you went over here, go to the 2D view, turn these tool paths off so we can see what's going on. If you go to your 2D view, and you go to this wave, you could scale it to whatever size that you want. So if you set the object size and say you wanted a diameter of a radius instead of 9 inches, which is a pretty big width. Say you only wanted it to be like 4 inches. So we can just come over here too with these linked, and we can hit apply. And of course, we can regenerate this. Oops, I need to select this one first, and I need to do this one second. It's that preview visible, and it's much quicker to generate. And what you're going to find is those tool paths don't take all that long when you reduce down the size. In fact, it doesn't even look like the swept tool path did anything for us because it was so low. So hopefully that's helpful, and I hope you make something wonderful. I hope you enjoyed. Please tune in, and I'm going to show you in my next video how to make the clips so you can make your own notebook